Eddie Tanaka dug his elbows into the mud, releasing the sweet and sickening smell of rotting vegetation. He wriggled frantically toward the river. It was monsoon season, and the leaves of the bushes disturbed by his passage sent water pattering along the length of his body. Some trickled down his collar and joined the sweat bathing him. His sweat wasn't due entirely to the tropical heat. Most of it was because of gut-trembling, bowel-loosening terror. What were those things? Behind him he heard screams of pain and terror from his colleagues, maddened, triumphant screams from the attackers, and over everything the keening wail of the things. Eddie pressed his belly against the muck, reached out for a tree root coiling up from the earth like an exposed rib, and pulled himself forward. Ahead was the soft gurgle and slap of running water. Not much farther now. He wondered if anyone else had made it out of the lab, and even as he crawled he hated himself for not going back, to look for any other survivors, to help them escape. But the only reason he was alive and outside was because he had been on the catwalk suspended high over the accelerator. There was a narrow access tube used to replenish the hyper-pure oil surrounding and shielding the rest of the building from the massive, though brief, release of atomic particles created by their experiments. Experiments that tried to approximate conditions nanoseconds after the Big Bang. Though Eddie was tall, he was also thin, and he had been able to squeeze through the pipe. The men who attacked the lab offered no mystery. Brandishing knives and machetes, faces obscured behind headcloths, they had extolled their god and voices made shrill by nerves and euphoria. Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! It was what was with them that froze the throat with pure, blind terror. Things like whirling dervishes constructed of slivered glass. The sound as they spun was a mind-numbing howl. When they swept across a person, their passage ripped away clothes and flesh. Eddie pushed up on his elbows and vomited. He had seen Anne just before he entered the pipe. Clothing and skin flayed off, screaming, still standing, not dead. He retched again and brought up only bile. It wasn't just water and sweat bathing his face now. He tasted tears. Anne had liked him. After they got past him following her into the bathroom that time. They had been discussing the results of that day's experiment, and Eddie just hadn't noticed. She liked me. She had told me so, and I didn't do anything to help her. Tears blinded him, and he found the edge of the river without meaning to. Arms flailing, he rolled down the bank and into the water. The current took him, the pockets of his lab coat filled with water, but despite the added drag, Eddie waited until the water had carried him perhaps a mile downstream from the lab before kicking off his tennis shoes and shrugging out of the coat. He didn't want the things realizing too quickly that someone had survived and escaped. He had to find a phone, call the emergency number he'd been given, tell the man who ran Lumina Enterprises what had happened, hope he didn't get committed as a madman.